Welcome to Geeky Bit. Today in tech history, we're going to talk about the Voodoo 1 graphics card. The first Voodoo card was released in late 1996. The company that released that card was Orchid Technologies, and it was the Righteous 3D. Of course, the manufacturer of the Voodoo 1 graphics card was 3DFX. By 1998, the Voodoo 1 had been replaced by the Voodoo 2 graphics card. The Voodoo 1 graphics card was composed of a DAC, frame buffer, and texture mapping unit with 4 megabytes of EDO DRAM, and it ran at 50 megahertz. With all of that out of the way, let's get into my story about the Voodoo 1 3D Accelerator card. It was the summer of 1997, and school had just gotten out, and I was working more hours at the local computer shop. While at work one day, my friend Tim had come in. He was planning on buying a Voodoo 1 3D Accelerator card with money he had made working at his fast food job. Of course, back then, all of us friends wanted a 3D Accelerator card like the Voodoo 1. Unfortunately, none of us had saved enough money yet, except for Tim. He had. However, he just barely had enough. He actually had to ask me to use my employee discount to get him a little extra off so he could afford one. Later that day, after getting off work, I went over to Tim's house to check out Quake. I was so excited to see what the Voodoo 1 would do to Quake. Of course, this was the first time I had ever seen anti-aliasing, and the textures looked so muddy as they blended together, and I was absolutely blown away at the quality. I was sold. Then and there, I wanted a Voodoo graphics card. From that point on, I started saving for a gaming computer that I was going to buy, because I didn't just want this graphics card, I also wanted a very powerful computer that could run it. By early 1998, my parents offered to buy me a laptop if I had put half of the money up myself. So I did, and that blew away my savings. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get a Voodoo card then and there because of that, but later on that year, they had released the Voodoo Banshee, and I was able to buy it, as it was very economical, and I was blown away. It was a 2D and 3D graphics card all in one, and it definitely outperformed the Voodoo 1. Since then, I have had several graphics cards made by several different companies over the years, but that Voodoo 1 and first seeing the 3D graphics it provided was absolutely mind-blowing. So here are some of my thoughts about the Voodoo 1. I think it was an amazing card for the time, and it was definitely affordable for most consumers to get into entry-level 3D graphics. And of course, by today's terms, it certainly was not a 3D accelerator, but back then it was, and it was amazing. I think without products like it, we probably wouldn't have seen the rush to 3D accelerators like we saw. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did making it, and if so, feel free to click that like button. And if you're not subscribed so already, feel free to do so as well. And if you'd like to get notifications of my future videos, click that bell button.